Hello, I'm Irina Bokas. Welcome to the Future of Learning. In the recent years, we've been hearing quite a bit that school must prepare our children for their future. This seems like a rather complex concept to me, as it brings at least two immediate questions. What exactly does it mean? And where do we start? There is a massive evidence that many people, especially here in America, are not getting a lot from their lives and are often being frustrated by them. Too many people don't really enjoy what they do, and research shows a huge level of disengagement at work accompanied by growth in sales of antidepressants. Many adults don't know enough about themselves, their talents, and their abilities. And as for our world, it is shifting from an era of mass production to a new period of personalization, and there is a renewed emphasis on questions about the self and personal identity. Who I am and how I'm smart, how I affect others and others affect me, and how I can make a difference. Finding their own element and understanding themselves in their unique place in life is the foundation of kids' happiness and fulfillment, professional and personal. Can school prepare our children for this? Our guests today are Andress, a 6th grade advanced math teacher at Sashabaw Middle School, and Bob Brazier, a 5th grade teacher at Bailey Lake Elementary, who year after year help their students to find their element and their passion. Thank you very much for the time and for being here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Bob, I have a first question for you. Even though my own daughter was probably about in 2nd grade when she first said, I really is thinking a lot about life and why I'm here. Most kids start thinking seriously about their questions of why I'm here and what is my purpose and self-identity in preteen years. And that is exactly where your students, both of your students are, 5th and 6th grade.
Right.
When they come to you, many of them might not know what they like or where they're placed. They can start searching. And as an elementary teacher, you get to see them a lot through the entire day. Mm-hmm. And you also get to see them in different functions, which is as mathematicians, writers, right. Scientists perhaps. So what helps you to identify natural proclivities in children when they perhaps don't even know themselves what they're good at?
Okay. All guns blazing right from the start. An advantage that I have as an elementary school teacher is exactly what you've just articulated. Mm-hmm. I know my students very, very well. I know them academically, of course. I know them as readers, mathematicians, scientists, and otherwise. In that domain, I know what domain of math they really love. I know what units of study in reading or science get them really fired up, what really inspire them. But I also know many of their after-school activities, their habits, mm-hmm. their groups of friends, the things that give them anxiety.
Yes.
I know whether they prefer the constant company of others or if they crave alone time. I know if they need to make sense of ideas in their head or if they want to do that out loud with a friend. I know if they need to take in a lot of sensory data or if they can be more a little bit intuitive. Mm-hmm. I know if they crave a sense of if they crave some intellectual debate or if they prefer mm-hmm. harmony. So there's all these ways that we know students, and elementary teaching affords me the opportunity to really know the whole child, which is what I know that's what we're really after. Mm-hmm. And then I believe that in turn, it's my charge, because I know them well, to help them know themselves well. And the truth is that idea that we can help students cultivate intrapersonal intelligence, that drew me to elementary school. Okay. Among other things. Another reason I went to elementary is because I'm a generalist. Like, I love math, but I love reading and I love writing, mm-hmm. everything. Another thing is that I'm a product of public education and I had a great K-12 experience, but one shortcoming of it I thought was that there wasn't really a space for me to kind of know myself really well. Mm-hmm. And so I sort of keep that in mind and make sure that there's opportunities that students have to, as I said earlier, like know themselves, themselves intrapersonally. I think that's really important.
So would it be correct to say that in order for you to help them to get to know themselves, you need to get to know them as people first.
Exactly.
Okay.
So during the school day, in the elementary school classroom, there are a lot of opportunities beyond knowing them deeply academically. In a given week, I have the chance to do things like, let's see, weekend share, where a student will talk about a dance competition that she had, and then having to sit through the siblings' gymnastics routine.
Yes.
They're going to have some indoor free play. I make it a priority that we have indoor free play, even as fifth graders. You know, when there's somebody tinkering off in the corner, and then there's another group using some interlocking cubes to make some kind of design. I give priority to outdoor free play as well, where somebody's organizing a football game, and other kids are out inventing some new world for themselves. We have Student of the Week displays, where sometimes in the form of a video or poster, students are talking about what really gets them going. We have movement breaks during the day, where a student might be, using GoNoodle.com to kind of we have one boy in the class this year that kind of leads the students in some like dance moves. We do morning thinking exercises. So we had a paper airplane throwing contest recently, and I'll pose a question like, list some uses for bricks. Right, to just really give them some divergent thinking, out of the box stuff. And then of course every day a mix of stuff. So a mix of paper, pencil, and hands-on, a mix of this and that, reflections, presentations, whole group, individual. Again, to say nothing of how we really know them deeply in the academic disciplines also.
Sort of in relation to what you said about your experience, when we think about finding a passion, we always think, okay, passion is something that I am really good at. So I can be passionate, well, sometimes it happens, but for the most part, we're passionate about something that we're good at. It's sort of, there is a correlation to it. And when it comes to the education, I'm not talking about necessarily our schools, but generally, there is a very narrow perception of a talent and an ability. It sort of corresponds with the grades. If I get the right answer, I get a good grade, it means I'm good at it. And if I don't, then perhaps I'm not. In this situation, it will require a lot of reinforcement and a lot of validation from a teacher for students to keep believing in his or her abilities, even perhaps the grade not necessarily reflects the high level of talent in this area. So what exactly do you do to help your students with that type of thinking?
Okay, good question. Deep question. So one thing I didn't mention before that I was about to say was that a teacher also is on this quest for self-understanding. And so to that end, I think that, well, first of all, one quote we throw around a lot in Clarkston is that children grow into the intellectual life around them. And that's kind of true in the home, but it's kind of true in the classroom too. But additionally, I think that self-understanding promotes empathy. I think that, to use a math term, they're reciprocally connected, self-understanding and empathy. And so if you recognize something in yourself, then you can kind of respond to and react to that in students. But you bring up the point here about validation, and I think that that's everything, right?
Yes.
That's our work. I think if I'm going to answer the question succinctly, which I'm clearly not an expert at, I would say that we have to see kids, right? We have to know them as individuals. And so to make that happen, we have to listen. I think something not really understood about teaching in general is that teaching is mostly listening. Teaching's mostly listening. And listening comes about from really close observation and helping students. It's not so much about my instruction that's clear and logical as it is I'm asking questions of students to help them articulate things clearly for themselves. And the way the school day is set up in the elementary school with our math workshop, reading workshop, writing workshop, it's all about listening. It's all about validating students and meeting them where they are, and giving them, in a reading or writing conference, giving them a sincere and authentic compliment about what they're doing, and then helping them do the next thing that they're ready for.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I would say we have to know the students individually.
Absolutely.
And then give them what they need. And we're set up, we have modes of instruction in Clarkson that are set up to help us do that.
Howard, I have a different question for you. Well, probably not different, but you're in a different situation. You just teach one specific subject, and provided that it's in advanced math, at least students who come to your class know already that they're good at that, right? Somewhat. So I believe there is a difference between being good at something and being passionate about something. It's kind of two different things. What do you believe it takes to go from a being good at stage to being passionate about stage?
You know, listening to what Bob is saying, so much of it applies to my students and situation. Kind of envious of having kids so much, you know, have them for the whole day.
Right.
Often have fantasized about having a one-room schoolhouse. But when my students come in, you know, I'm listening to discussing being good at something is what you're passionate about. I think the flip side of that is you become good at something that you're passionate about. And a lot of the students that come to me have, in many cases, in advanced placement, have been they see themselves through other people's eyes. So they're defining themselves and their ability as measured externally. And part of what I see, what I need to do is help that develop into more of an intrinsic motivation, where they're saying, you know, I'm good at this because I'm very fast. I'm the first one done in my class, and my answers are all right.
Yeah.
And so that mindset is what I really strive to change, that it's not about being fast and right, it's about understanding. And it's not, and so it's a subtle shift, and it takes a long time. And sometimes it takes, well, giving them a little more challenge than they're used to. Well, that's part of it too, giving them a lot more challenge than they're used to.
Yes.
So that they get out of that comfort zone and defining themselves only as the person that always gets the right answer. Because of course the whole point is not the right answer, the whole point is the process. So, you know, the kid who comes in thinking that they're good, and what's interesting, because I've had both regular and advanced, and now have strictly advanced. A lot of kids, particularly in 6th grade, will come in and they're somewhat intimidated by this setting because they're no longer just the one or two all-star in the class, they're of like-minded peers, and so they're a little insecure. And this kind of highlights the fact that they're defining their talents through external recognition and not getting to the point where they know that they really enjoy this and they're good at it and will accept mistakes and all the setbacks that are part of that along the way. Is that making any sense?
Yes.
Sure.
So, and I guess to sum it up, you know, I basically am aiming to get them to accept making mistakes, giving them more challenge than they're used to, and in the process it gets to a point where they're motivated to understand more so than just having a right answer, because, you know, there's many different ways to get a right answer, and some problems, you know, don't necessarily have a right answer, and we deal with those too.
Well, I guess there is always a balance between passion and ability, so to speak. When it comes to math, you know, by probably definition of many adults, it's pretty cut and dry.
Right.
And yet, there is a way, and at least you find this way from what I hear, to ignite the passion about something that is so cut and dry that people think, well, how exactly is it even possible? So how do you connect with your students in such a way that they will find this individual way that they want to push their abilities further?
And that's a key thing, because I get the greatest joy out of seeing kids push themselves and discover they can do more than they realized. And so, and then they develop some passion in the process. So it kind of fits in with what I was saying before, that, and from my generation, the math was engaged, and here was a way to do a problem.
Yes,
you mimic
one way.
this, you parrot that, and you solve it, and that's all there is to it. Whereas now, as true across most learning, we recognize the importance of collaboration, of multiple solution paths. And so the emphasis then is understanding things from multiple points of view, both internally and from other people's points of view. So So getting to that, developing that passion, much of it comes from, I give them some really challenging questions and problems that are a lot of fun, and they're challenging for me too, so I'll model the excitement of doing things.
They come in talking about it too into my classroom. Like that's
we share some
that's
students,
the
which
level
is
of
kind of
excitement that happens. That's cool.
And so there has to be problems that cannot be solved quickly and cannot be solved in one particular way. So, you know, each week and oftentimes these are extraneous to the regular curriculum. They're kind of like enrichment, Olympiad type questions and other things that we'll spend some days working on. And they're kind of problems that will get into a kid's mind, and it may take several days, and they're used to solving things right now. You know, if I can't solve it right now, I'm not smart.
Oh, I hear it. My son, that's how it is.
Right,
Yes.
and so they define themselves that way, that if I can't solve this right away, I'm a failure. And then getting them out of that mindset to recognize that, no, you're going to learn a lot more when you make mistakes. You're going to learn a lot more from the struggle. You're going to learn a lot more by the process of sharing your thoughts with the people you're collaborating with and bouncing your ideas off. And when just saying out loud, they discover what they're thinking. So, process of making intrinsic is tied in with this collaboration process by explaining what they're thinking to other people. Sometimes for the first time, they discover more what they're thinking. So they get in touch more with how they interpret something as opposed to how they've been told they should or how it should be interpreted. And that kind of ties in with, you know, self-actualization and recognizing their own talents and being their own agent of purpose and discovery.
Finding their own way to solve the same thing that they were taught differently.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so then and you can really celebrate that, because we have one problem, there could be 5, 6, 7 different ways of looking at and solving, interpreting. And everyone has a chance to, you know, we can see how it connects to other ideas, but we can celebrate other, it's not just one person, the first one coming up with one answer, but it's more of a process.
Okay.
That's a shift we're making at the elementary level as well, is really celebrating those multiple methods for arriving at a solution.
Well, the question for you would be, since I know that your passion is writing for the most part, we know that sometimes, you know, especially when it comes to writing, there are different genres, and you know, it requires in some cases passion just for writing and inspiration. Let's say a student might be a very good poet, right? And when it comes to research, randomly selected, yes. And when it comes to a research paper, it might not be the case. So it's the same sort of subject, if you wish, but it's a different genres within this subject. So what do you do? How can you sustain a child's passion for writing if the poetry unit is over and now we're doing a research paper and it doesn't produce the same outcome?
Yeah, this is a key question. So teaching, as I see it, is about transfer. To quote Vygotsky, what a child can do in cooperation today, he can do independently tomorrow. And it's this idea of what a child can do independently that really matters in the end. So what I try to do, what teachers try to do, is provide scaffolds, opportunities, time, a great relationship, and quick chunks of explicit instruction in the hopes of making sure that a student has internalized and then can later apply new learning. So this is all about relationship with the students again, the teacher knowing the students well and the students knowing themselves well. So let's say we have this example of a child who is a master poet. Maybe she, to pick a random thing, is great with figurative language.
Yes.
It's my charge to help her see that that is fundamental to the next writing unit as well. So I know her enough to know this is a great strength of this writer, and I know that, help her see that, and show her how it's important.
Some of the best expository writing will have great figurative language.
Yes, that's embedded in it.
Right.
So you kind of transfer her skills from, let's say, creative writing to something that maybe not that creative, but she still can apply them.
Yes.
Okay.
Because good writing isn't really genre bound.
Exactly.
And so that's what explicitly help her see. That's my role. And I'm able to do that because I know her well.
And not allow her or him to limit themselves thinking, I'm just a good poet.
Right.
I'm a
exactly.
writer.
I'm a writer.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right. So to talk a little bit more about writing, there's some, what we do during writing workshop is I meet generally one-on-one, sometimes in a small group with students, and I routinely ask them the same questions. The questions I ask them are, what are you working on as a writer? What are you doing to make the piece of writing work? What do you think of what you've done so far? And what is your plan for continuing? And if collectively those questions assume that students are thinkers, right, doers, tinkerers, that they are decision makers, it positions them as people who are thoughtful, have agency, right? All the things.
Then you see them asking each other those very same questions, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, because it gets internalized. But we expect students to be thinkers here, right? I go back to the mission. What's the mission of Clarkson Schools? It's to cultivate thinkers, learners, and positive contributors.
That transfers to anything in
Anything.
life.
And that's, so when you talk, I'm struck by how everything you say is, that's how it is in my classroom too. And that's really interesting to me because sometimes we're divided by the subject areas.
Yes.
When in fact there's so much that they have in common. It's fluid. Right.
So what I hear pretty much is a lot has to do with the mindset.
Yes.
So if you have a positive mindset and growth mindset, then a lot of things can be accomplished. And if we don't create that sort of mindset, then we can go too far with this. And with this is actually, Howard, I have a question for you. One of your former students who has graduated already was talking about the biggest impact you had on him in 6th grade, back a long time ago. And he said that what was the biggest impact is that you made him see that there are limitless opportunities for growth. So that is certainly not subject related. It's a mindset. And I would like to know, how do you do that?
Well, it kind of gives me chills just to hear that.
That's pretty cool.
That's what you hope. I share with kids something that I heard or read or was told when I was about their age, and share how much it meant to me and directed the path of my life. And that was, a person's reach should exceed their grasp. And talk about that. We dance around how you always want to go beyond what you're capable of in whatever endeavor it is. So in class, much like Bob gets the privilege of doing, I get to know them in every respect. You know, what they're doing, what their strengths are in and out of the classroom, what their interests and hobbies. And we also celebrate those, that you want to excel in all things. And in every case, we're applying some of the principles of thinking and problem solving. So I kind of embrace the whole child. And getting the relationships I build with them are the most important thing in my job. It's the thing I love the most. But getting to your questions, the relationship I build that kind of opens up the doors to my students' growth, and it gives me some credibility in their own minds, because it's a genuine, sincere connection that we have. I have a real interest in who they are, and listening, and then reading them, just the subtle things and expressions and moods and how they walk, just the way they come in through the door in any given day. So we have a connection, and so that connection I can use to push them, and they know that I will expect great things, and we have a trust. So, and I also, so I want them to, once by this time, as the year goes on, they've become more intrinsically motivated, ideally. I see that happen. And so, and I won't accept them putting limits on themselves. It won't happen in class. Like, I can't get this. No, you haven't gotten it yet. Yeah. And it's hilarious when kids say, I don't understand any of this. I say, you liar.
Right.
We talk about it, I said, this is the iceberg moment. Do you understand? We go through and they know everything, but one little aspect.
And all of a sudden they don't know anything.
Right, so they don't know anything. And so it's, it's a metaphor for the way we engage and start to recognize, and we can use that moment. It's an iceberg moment. You know everything but the little tip. And so anyway, that helps them to, I think, see themselves as having more potential. And I share with them a lot of things that I've done over the years and what I'm doing currently, both academic and personal, and how I strive to always improve, and the ultimate joy in that. And I say, you know, our whole purpose in being here is to evolve, to constantly evolve, to be better in everything we do, whether it's being a better friend, a better mathematician, a better student, a better son or daughter. And so anyway, I think that kind of gets the
So it's
idea.
all boiling down to human nature.
Yes.
Being a human being is first, and the rest will follow. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you so very much for being here today and for that very meaningful conversation.
Well, I hope so. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finding our passion is a journey inside that requires time with ourselves. It isn't about walking away from responsibilities and leaving everything behind. It is about trying to find a purpose in our life and being honorable and true to ourselves. Doing what we love gives us energy and creative spark. There is no better preparation for life than helping our children to discover their passions that will become what they do. And if we were to say to them, why don't you try something else? They'd say, that isn't what I do. This is who I am.